Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patrick Sun, and I'm the Managing Director at the National Operations Center of Excellence. And I want to welcome you to our webinar today, specifically focusing on the pretty rare but major event that's going to be coming up in August of 2017. And there's been a lot of preparation that's gone on, and this particular topic actually brings together quite a few different states, around 14 states, and a lot of local agencies, and a whole host of other aspects that have been thought about and are being planned that our panelists and our presenters are going to go through and be able to hopefully shed some light, no pun intended, on this particular event. And so we hope that you can find the webinar definitely stimulating and useful for you to take back. I am going to go ahead at this point and introduce Lori Ratto from FHWA, and she's part of the Office of Operations, but on the Traffic Incident Events Management team and side. So, Lori, why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
Thanks very much, Patrick. Before we get started, my special thanks to the National Operations Center of Excellence for hosting this session. My special thanks to Ashley Sieko of the Center to make sure that all the pieces for the webinar were in place. And thank you to Patrick, who has embraced this topic wholeheartedly, to the point about how best to house the events after action reports so that they're available for those states that will be under the path of the 2024 solar eclipse. So I think we have a great partnership with this. Welcome. I know you'll be pleased to hear from 5 very knowledgeable speakers. We have what I think is a very exciting topic to discuss. Today's focus is will be on both the roads and the sky. To help states and localities prepare for the August 21st, 2017 solar eclipse, we'll start with what we can expect to see above us on that day. And I want to thank our speakers, Lika, Sean, Stu, Rich, and Daryl, the speakers you will now hear from, because I don't know about anyone else, but I was really quite impressed with when we did the walkthrough last week. Just to let you know, to save time for questions, and because everyone's bios are on the webinar registration page, I'll dispense with reading their bios. So what I have here are the speakers, so because we won't be doing webcam, but you can see who will be speaking. Patrick, I'm Lori, Lika, Shauna, Rich, Stu, and Daryl. So let's get started with Lika from NASA.
Hi. I guess.
All right. Okay.
Show my screen.
There you go, Lika. You can just go ahead and go into full screen mode when you're ready for your slideshow.
Okay. All right.
Good.
Oh, no, not that. Not that. I need to go to the beginning of the page. This is interesting technology in itself. Okay. I'm there, right?
Yes, you're good to go.
Can you see? Okay.
Yep.
So the way I kind of want to think about this eclipse, there's so much to kind of talk about it, but like many events, you know, this is, you can think of this as a 100-year eclipse. You know, an eclipse of this magnitude, and by that, what I mean is that eclipse that is really crisscrossing the entire continental USA has not happened for almost 100 years. 100 years. The last time something like this happened in America was in 1918. Total solar eclipse, you can think of it as being widely regarded as the most incredible, breathtaking, natural phenomenon visible from our planet. And if you haven't seen it, you just don't know what kind of a spectacle that is. Everyone who has seen such an eclipse, and I'm talking about the totality of it, and I have seen 9 of these, or I have attempted to see 9. I actually landed up seeing 7. Can attest to the awe and wonder of this really amazing spectacle. In fact, once you have seen it one time, people often become sort of hooked to the phenomenon of eclipse. It can be actually a transformational experience. When you see your own star that you're used to looking at every day and see it completely darken the visible face, and then out come this ethereal layer that you had no idea that it existed. We scientists artificially block the sun and see this. So we study it. We know it exists. But for common people who have not thought about it, seen it, or not known it, to see this beautiful outer atmosphere emerge is quite a breathtaking experience. There are, also sort of many misconceptions that abound concerning this eclipse viewing experience. And for some of those reasons, this rare experience is also widely misunderstood and not appreciated often. We tell people not to look at the sun with unaided eyes. So people sometimes kind of take that to be the case even during the phase of totality. That is the only phase when you can actually look at the sun, because the bright disk is no longer visible and you can see the corona with unaided eyes. And I'll kind of go over this a little bit more. One other thing I think I want to say up front is that what makes this eclipse really exciting is that 100 years later, America today is a completely different place than it was 100 years ago. Modern technology has created, so in that sense, a perfect generation of young people, but also, older citizens to undertake this quest. We have now access to technology that was literally unheard of 100 years ago, or would have been thought of as magic. Think of mobile phones, think of personal cameras, the internet, social networking. These are common items to millions and millions of Americans of all ages. And that's what is also going to make the, this eclipse a very rich experience in terms of collecting data of all sorts, of scientific and social. And who knows what comes next. The wonderful thing is we can work with this idea again in 7 years in 2024. This is an eclipse. We can say that is going to be the most observed, most filmed and photographed, most studied and documented, and I'd say perhaps the most appreciated in history. And it is the context that makes all of this possible. So before I go further into what NASA will be doing, I kind of wanted to give you a snapshot of what is it we see during the eclipse and what is its importance as far as we human beings are concerned. So anyone who has ever seen a picture of Earth taken from deep space, can be forgiven for thinking of these two simple words, splendid isolation. So if you think of our globe, surrounded by million miles of uninterrupted black, this really fragile blue globe, especially visible from International Space Station, seems profoundly alone, disconnected from anything else. And what I am going to take you through in the context of talking about this eclipse is this concept could not be further from the truth. Our planet is profoundly connected to our star. And the bright blue visible disk that we see is just the most obvious evidence. And how does our star interact with our planet? So the movie that you're seeing with the caption that's a space weather terrestrial influence, essentially gives you a picture of how the outer atmosphere of the sun, the corona, expands, generating solar wind, and how that solar wind interacts with Earth's outermost layer, the magnetosphere, which in a way shields and protects our planet from the harmful radiation from the sun, from the energetic particles that are thrown into the solar system from the sun. And you can see how this magnetosphere, it's a model you're looking at, sort of quivers under this pressure. So while the nonstop flood of sunlight warms the planet, allowing us to live and to see, invisible connections are equally profound. And that's what you are seeing in the way of the space weather interaction of our star, the solar wind, and of our magnetosphere in our on planet Earth. And of course, every once in a while, these particles will stream through the magnetosphere, lighting up the northern and southern skies in the form of aurora australis and aurora borealis. And that's another movie that you're seeing of aurora borealis taken from the International Space Station. So there is a deep connection between us and our planet beyond sort of seeing the visible light, climate connection, this invisible connection through the magnetic field. Not only Earth, but the entire solar system lives with this star. And this is again giving you a fuller picture. These are images taken from our satellite, SOHO, Stereo, LASCO, and you can see the big, coronal mass ejection, solar storms being ejected from the surface of the sun. And you can see how this material essentially drives through the entire solar system into interplanetary medium, propagating all the way to the edges of the solar system. So every planet, every object in the solar system essentially is bathed in this solar environment of solar wind and solar storms. And this is the part, the one that is very close to the sun, the inner corona, is what we will be able to see during a total solar eclipse, a very dynamic environment. Very quickly, to take you back to the system science of heliophysics, when we started our science, let's see if I can go back to this. When we started our science, we started looking at our planet, looking at the poles of the planet, looking at Earth science as a system, and gradually we have now connected and gone beyond our low Earth environment into deep space, into interplanetary medium, into sun's domain, and that's what we are calling heliophysics. It's the connection of the sun, its variability to our planet and everything else in the solar system. So why the heck do we even care about solar variability and study the sun in such great detail? Because there are tremendous consequences, societal consequences to solar variability. Human radiation exposure, if you think about it, human beings have been living on space station over a decade now. I think you have been on board space station for 16 years now. We are seriously contemplating exploring deep space, going to Mars, to asteroid and other places, and solar environment dominates this deep space. There are impacts on technology. Anything that is electromagnetic in nature can be profoundly affected by solar variability, solar storms, communication, navigation system, satellite system, aviation, including power grid. And then, of course, terrestrial climate, both long and short term. So there are many reasons why we really need to understand the sun and its consequences. So going back to eclipse now, this kind of gives you the picture of what happens during total solar eclipse or a partial solar eclipse. This picture kind of shows the umbral cone and the penumbral cone. The dark dot here, and I'll show you some movies to make it clearer, is where we are going to be able to experience the total solar eclipse, where we can actually see the corona. In the region which is the lighter gray is the penumbral cone, which is where you're going to be able to see actually partial phases of the eclipse. And I'm going to kind of play a movie for you now, and you can see the shadow and the arriving, moving from west coast of USA to the east coast of USA, crisscrossing 12 states. This is the path of totality, this reddish narrow band which has the umbral cone of the moon, and that's where you're going to be able to see the corona. And these are available on the NASA website, and I have a slide that will give you the address for the NASA website. Going to the next movie, what you can see are the phases of the eclipse that we are going to be able to experience. And you can see as the shadow moves, you see the totality, exactly the crescent shape of the sun as partially covered by the moon. So pretty much entire USA will be observing some aspects of the eclipse, and it could be partial or it could be total depending on where you are located. And there are a ton of things that you can do in order to enjoy the partial solar eclipse as well. There are little gadgets you can make. It's quite an incredible experience. But my recommendation is that if you have a chance, or I would even urge you to make a chance to go to the path of totality to see that breathtaking view of the solar corona during the total solar eclipse. So from the NASA perspective, we are considering that the role, the eclipse is going to happen with or without NASA. It's a celestial event, but how can NASA help really prepare the nation to view this eclipse safely, to extract as much science as we can from both space and ground-based equipment, to educate both the younger generation as well as the adult public in really showing the connection of eclipse to many of the sciences that we do, and how science actually takes place. And that's kind of done through the citizen science component as well. And then there'll be a host of public engagement. And again, many of these activities are going to be listed on the NASA website, which is already online, but of course it's constantly going to be updated. So safety, as I already mentioned, is a very important aspect. We are working with American Astronomical Society and of course with the Ophthalmology Society and others. Really, we have documentation of safe viewing. Those are, again, some of those materials are on our website. I think a secondary responsibility is also to work with community to provide safe filters for camera, picture taking parameters, etc. We have lots of scientists at NASA who are very familiar with these techniques. And again, we are also closely working with the American Astronomical Society group and the network of amateur astronomers. Science is obviously a very important aspect. There are some key science that we can do only during a total solar eclipse. as, really viewing the corona very close to the sun, developing new instrumentation to actually observe the corona close to the sun, which is almost the birthplace of space weather, of solar wind. But then there are lots of other effects taking place under the shadow of the moon. When the sunlight is cut off, there's going to be changes in radiation, how that might drive local conditions in the ionosphere, stratosphere, how the temperature varies, whether that causes changes in wind velocity, direction. So these are experiments that regular scientists and citizen scientists can undertake, and we hope we can support some of those efforts. Outside of that, of course, we have space-based heliophysics science, planetary science, observations from International Space Station, other NASA airborne aircraft who might be able to view the eclipse from space. So a whole lot of activities going on in that regard. This is also an exciting event that can be utilized as a teaching moment for everyone. How is it we are able to predict the eclipse with such accuracy? That kind of gives you an understanding of many of the laws of physics, the geometry, and from that, we can take you to the next step. Predicting this eclipse is something we have done for a very long time before the existence of NASA. That shows that science education, math education is something that is so fundamental. But now we can take these concepts and apply these concepts of eclipse, which is kind of like a transit event, apply it to distant world. In fact, these are techniques that's used to find exoplanets, essentially, because when a satellite like a moon comes between a star and another planet, what it does, it blocks off a little bit of radiation from the parent star, which causes a little fluctuation in the light coming from that star. And using those kind of information from distant stars and distant planets that are blocking the starlight, we can find the existence of exoplanets, their shape, their distance, and whole host of other information. But you can see already sort of the connection being here on this planet and not gone anywhere else. We are able to make such extrapolations and predictions. So pretty fascinating stuff. And these are kind of the ideas that we want to take to the high school and to the adult public. We are developing material for classroom, for websites. We're working with museums, science center, amateur astronomy clubs, other youth organizations, lots of different groups. Citizen science, as I mentioned, is another very important component. While this is not hard, rigorous science that we do within NASA, but this is really including large part of the community-driven science, where community can participate in gathering science and then contributing to the larger science questions that we have. And this can be really aided by sort of the new technology that I was talking about, distributed asset with iPhone or other devices, and we can collect both data in terms of, physics data in terms of temperature or amount of sunlight, but we can also start looking at effect on ecosystem, especially animal behavior, which has been studied for shorter duration in other eclipses, and kind of want to collect this data in cooperation with all of our other NASA Science Division, National Science Foundation, EPA, Sierra Club, Audubon Society. So these are still kind of, these are organizations that are coming together, trying to figure out the areas that we are going to be tackling. Societal behavioral data with NIH, and how are we then going to distribute these data and mine this data in future. These are all important discussions to be had. Interdisciplinary science, this is something NASA is pursuing now, solicited proposal essentially to get scientists to participate in this activity and provide their thoughts in terms of what new science can be done during this eclipse that cannot be done any other way. So again, I think I already kind of talked about the important things NASA can and us can do, and we are already doing. There are many NASA networks. Again, these are going to be available to you when you go to the NASA website. There are 10 NASA field centers, education offices that are working with us, and then all of the other various museum alliances and Space Grant Consortium and Solar System Ambassador, many different networks that are working with us to make this eclipse a really big event. This is a picture, a movie that kind of will be important for people who are interested in gathering, temperature information, or to know how much sunlight is falling in areas in the region of totality, or in the region where the sun is covered only partially. And these are, we have actual calculations here, good numbers that we can provide to people, but it gives you kind of, how much solar radiation is cut off or cut out in the path of totality, and what is the distribution function essentially from that point onwards. This is another map that would be very useful. Have not fully utilized it, but this gives you sort of details of locations, the big cities in the area. You can find out, federal land, high schools, middle schools, whatever you're looking for, one can kind of dig a little deeper and extract information of that along the path of totality. So there are detailed maps also that are going to be available to us. This is the Eclipse 2017 NASA website. I urge you to go take a look at it, send us your comments if there is something missing, something you'd like to see added. This is kind of one picture to tell the story of this eclipse in a way, as a singular event of national scale and with a global audience. This event in some ways might, I say will or might rival the moon landing of 1969 as a landmark event for a new generation. And there are just, it has so many, this picture is a multispectral picture of the sun taken from one of our satellites called Solar Dynamics Observatory. And you can see that this eclipse has the potential to kind of inform and impact areas of economy, politics, culture. It has an intellectual and spiritual component, and most importantly, scientific data gathering power. And my final slide is essentially a slide that gives you a picture of our mission called Solar Pro Plus. And this is our first mission to a star. We have pretty much been to every planet and to the edge of the solar system with our satellites, but what we have not done yet is visit a star. And that's going to change in October of 2018 with the visit of Solar Probe Plus in the same environment of the solar corona that you will be able to watch during the August 2017 total solar eclipse. Our spacecraft will be there. You're seeing the trajectory of the spacecraft, and it's going to be there to gather the sample material of the local environment as opposed to observing the sun from far away. And with that, I will end. Thank you.
Thank you, Lika. I think you gave us a wonderful, I know you gave us a wonderful perspective of what to expect in that wonderful multi-faceted approach. And I like the way that you compared it to the moon landing. And I think that's a great way for all of us to think about it. What a great activity August 21st will be. As I introduce Shauna Edson from the Smithsonian Institute, who will share with us what will be happening on the ground to help to get people to look at the sky. Let me remind people that please put your questions in the chat box. It's the only way we'll be taking questions. There won't be any by voice. So please ask your questions and we will answer them. Thanks. And Shauna, let's hear what we know what will be happening in the middle of August.
Hello. Yes, thank you, Laurel. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Lika. I always love how you articulate the magnitude of this and how much it means to people. Full disclosure, I'm an astronomer. I have never seen a total solar eclipse, but a lot of the volunteers who work with me at the museum have. And the fervence with which they feel moved to share how powerful the experience is tells me how huge a deal this is. So I'm really excited for everything that's going to be going on. We've certainly been thinking and planning about this for about 3 years, and we're excited to be bringing more entities into the loop as we get ready for this. So my area of expertise is sort of what's going to happen on the ground. There we go. And there will be a lot of viewing events. There's a number of museums and science centers that will be holding events, some towns, some state and federal parks. So there's a whole lot that will be going on. There's quite a few major universities that are in the path. And more events will be popping up as more and more people realize that this is going to be happening and that they should gather together and see it. So there are a couple of sites that have begun gathering, sort of aggregating what events are happening and where and collecting the information. One of them is the NASA Eclipse page that Lika was just telling us about. And I'm actually going to take you there. So this is the NASA Eclipse landing page. And if you go to the Events tab, there's an event map. And that will bring up this. So this is a really great map because this is Google Maps with a data layer that shows the path of totality, and each of these points is an event that's happening. So if you click on one of them, you can get to the name. So this is the Oregon Solar Fest happening at the fairgrounds. There's a website, there's a basic summary of information, and you can kind of you can navigate through this map and see what else is happening, what other events are there. You can also, up at the top here, get that out of the way, you can also submit your own events. So if you or someone in your area is hosting an eclipse-related event, you can submit that. It will get added to the map so that we can all see what kinds of things will be happening. They're listed down the side here. More things will be added as we go. But this NASA map is a really great resource for people who are trying to plan for the events that will be taking place. There's also the National Eclipse page. That's a list format of events. There's a lot of overlap between the map page and the listing page. But these are two really great sort of collections of what events are planned. These are the official events that are public. Plenty of people who are lucky enough to live in the path of totality will be in their backyards with their eclipse glasses enjoying this. But this is a place that you can find the public events. And so if you are an official in one of these states and you're looking for partners or looking for information to be able to plan for the massive influx of eclipse tourists that you can expect, this is a great place to start. So I'm going to highlight a few of the events that we know are happening, especially the museums, because that's my area of expertise. So the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry will have a festival on the day of the eclipse, and they're in Pacific time. So as soon as the sun rises, they're going to be getting close to, if not already in the partial eclipse. So starting at 6 a.m., they will have obviously viewings of the sun through various safe means, and there will also be astronomy-related activities. So it really is a festival. That is a paid event. Some of the events are free, some are paid, but there is more information on the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry website, of course. And this is a great example of, taking the opportunity to view an eclipse and also building in these other activities and things you can do. There's, more than an hour of partial eclipse that you will see before the 2 or so minutes of totality, and so there's a lot of time there to be appreciating and learning about what's happening in the sky. The state of Wyoming has a really great, huge piece of the eclipse track, and the state parks have a number of events scheduled throughout the state. There's the entire week leading up to the eclipse. There is a festival, and again, there will be, the eclipse day. There are viewing activities and, safe methods of viewing the sun, but there are also events and tours and educational activities and things for all sorts of people to get to do. That is all free and open to the public, and that information is on the Wyoming Parks site. So that's an example of a municipal, a government agency kind of partnering with the local fairgrounds or libraries or other venues to be able to allow their citizens to see and appreciate this event. Another museum that is also a Smithsonian affiliate is the South Carolina State Museum. So the day before the eclipse and then the day of, there will be safe viewings, such as the kid you see in the picture here. So he's got eclipse glasses, and there's also a telescope there that has a filter built in so you can see the sun itself, and if there's any sunspots or interesting things on the sun while you're waiting for totality, you'll also be able to observe those details on the sun. So that starts at noon because that's Eastern time, so it'll be a little later in our day on this side of the country. That is also a paid ticketed event, but it will be open to however many ticket holders they can hold, and there's information on the South Carolina Museum site about that. So these are examples of the kinds of things that different areas are doing. This is a big, really interesting, just awe-inspiring event, and it's the kind of thing where you want to be with other people. It's the sort of experience that you really want to share, and so I've been thrilled to see how many events like this are being planned. There are also, as I said, several universities that are in the path of totality. Southern Illinois University is what they think of as the eclipse crossroads, because this eclipse is happening next year, 2017. In 2024, there is another solar eclipse that was on Leica's map that's going to cross it's going to be the opposite diagonal, so it's going to come from Mexico up through Texas and through Illinois and Ohio and up through the Northeast. And Southern Illinois University in Carbondale is within where those two paths cross. So they're getting 2 eclipses in a decade. They are planning a whole lot of events on the day of and the day before. The University of Missouri at Columbia, it's their first day of classes, so they've got a day of festival events and, of course, viewings. Austin Peay State University is also holding a viewing and, again, informational, participatory activities for students and people in the area that will get to experience this. So if you're not sure what's going on, you might want to first check with your local university and maybe their astronomy department to see what kinds of things are going on. So I was talking about, finding partners. If you are planning for how many tourists you think you're going to get and how you're going to handle the crowds, knowing what events are happening near you that will be specifically drawing people is very important. The first thing on my list is to get in touch with your local astronomy club, and I cannot emphasize that enough. Amateur astronomers are your best friends when it comes to planning this. I can speak from knowing my volunteers who are hardcore amateur astronomers. The eclipse chasers are experienced, they're so knowledgeable, they want to share this experience, they want everyone to be able to get to totality and to see this. They know how to photograph it, they know how to view it safely, and a lot of them made their plans 3 years ago and booked their campsites. So those are, your local astronomy club is going to be a wealth of information of people who can help you kind of know what to expect. And they are most definitely, if they're in the path of totality, they're planning viewing events. If they are from elsewhere outside the path of totality, they're probably planning to travel to the path. So they will be a really great resource, human resource for your planning. Museums and science centers are definitely an obvious place that would hold something like that, but parks departments, colleges and universities, like I said, and also private event venues, fairgrounds or other private businesses may be planning something. So you can use the map that I had showed earlier, one of those clearinghouse pages, to look up events that will be near you, but you can also get in touch with any of these entities to find out what they have planned or what they know about and how you can help each other with resources. I wanted to make a specific note about the amateur astronomy community. As I said, they're extremely experienced and knowledgeable. Lots of them have been planning for this eclipse, made their plans a long time ago. The diagram that's on my slide there was created by Jay, who runs the Eclipsophile website, which I'll show on the next slide. This is an estimation of the average cloud cover. So this is, what are your chances of not having cloudy skies in these various places along the path of totality from west to east? And so where you see those nice little low places where you're in the rain shadow of the Cascades or in some of these other areas, that is every amateur astronomer who has paid attention to the eclipse, I guarantee you, has seen this diagram and is using it to plan where they're going to go, if they hadn't already. So areas that are showing as good chance of clarity are probably going to be extra crowded. And like I said, the amateur astronomers, there is a real passion to go see this. Like, basically nothing will stop them. And so the things that local agents will need to think about, the situation that you need to be prepared for, is if you've got a whole bunch of people in a municipal area and that area is cloudy, but 60 or so miles away there's a big clear patch, everyone is going to be using the same roads to try and get to that clear area. And there's even more urgency than you're driving in traffic and you're trying to get to work on time. No, this is a 2.5-minute event, and if you don't get there, if you don't get to that clear sky, you will miss seeing it, and it's not going to repeat itself. And so there is a kind of urgency that people on the road and authorities will just need to be aware of, including things like people who try to look at the eclipse while driving. We all know it's not safe. Some people will do it anyway. So these kinds of things are just good to know and prepare for. And again, the amateur astronomy community can give you insights and they can share what they've planned and what they already know about. So some information and resources that are really useful. The first one here, AAS, the American Astronomical Society, held a workshop. They've been holding workshops for the last couple of years about planning for the eclipse. This one in June was hosted at Southern Illinois University. That is all available online. Several sessions were recorded, and a number of the sessions and speakers dealt specifically with the logistics and planning for things like traffic and porta potties and lodging and food. So that's a really great place to start. The Southern Illinois University Eclipse page is also an excellent gathering of resources and information. Eclipsophile is where that diagram from the last slide came from, and that's, again, an amateur astronomer's perspective, viewing information, ways to host an event. And finally, eclipse2017.org has been going probably the longest of most of these, and they have a really great collection of information. So along with the NASA Eclipse page, all of these are good for viewing information to know what the public is going to be looking at and using as their guides, and hopefully everybody's going to have clear skies and a beautiful view of this truly once in a lifetime event. So with that, I will turn it back over to the moderators.
Thanks, Shana. And I liked that you shared with us for folks to consider contact or work with their local astronomy clubs, because in the world of planned special events, we are very comfortable working with sporting events and parades, but this is much different. And as we move from looking at the sky to what's happening in what the events are, let's now talk about one of the cities that is right in that map of totality. Lieutenant Stuart Anderson will speak about what will be happening in Casper, Wyoming. So I'll let Lieutenant Anderson share with us what they're working on.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Excuse me. Thank you for inviting us to join. We first learned about the eclipse, or I did myself, in a big meeting that we had, community-wide meeting, about a year and a half ago. I knew nothing about it, and once they started talking about all the visitors that may come, etc., that
do we have your slides up? Can we? Oh, there they are. Okay.
There they are. Sorry about that. First learned about it, and my first inclination was, well, this seems kind of big, so we should cancel it. Obviously, that's not going to happen. The center of the center, if you will, goes right across Casper Community College here in town. Transverses pretty much, well, all of Wyoming. And so we started planning on, and you've probably, basically I'm located right about here where the star is. But it comes all the way across Wyoming. The thing is, Wyoming, we have our total population is a little over 500,000, or only 500,000 folks. So few folks, few resources. So normally our emergency plans, et cetera, call for asking our counterparts in other, with mutual aid in other counties to assist us. That's probably not going to happen a whole lot with this, considering pretty much the entire state's going to be involved. So now we're in planning processes, all the counties along that path, as well as the state of Wyoming, et cetera. We're all looking into what we're going to do, and I do know there will be planning certain things here in Natrona County, as well as our counterparts in communicating with them in it'd be Fremont County, both Sublette and Teton County up here, Converse, Platte and Goshen. We're all planning for visitors. Prospective visitors, we've heard in just Natrona County, our population is about 70,000 total. And we're expecting another 50,000 in visitors. And they told us the entire state of Wyoming can expect up to 500,000 or 500,000, which would basically double our population for the state. So we're taking the stance of, from my view and my presentation, is public safety wise. You saw this slide before, a little bit larger version here. This is where Casper's located along the line. A little bit to the west of here, you can see Riverton. That's our next county to our west, and between us, lowest cloud cover, if you will, or chances. So that we're looking at, lower cloud cover here, and gets higher as we go east and southeast, I guess. And that's why they're calling for our area to have a high influx of folks, because of the lower chances of cloud cover for that particular date historically. Some of our events, our event update, these slides are from a meeting we had a couple weeks ago, or about a week and a half ago. Right now we're looking at the Nitro Circus. We'll be at our fairgrounds on Saturday. We're doing an Eclipse Fest from that Friday, the 18th through the 21st. Symphony Downtown Festival, Christian concert for 2 or 3 days. We did hire, or the city did hire an Eclipse director or planner to coordinate that. So I've been working with her. She got us into basically a sharing website, and this is a screenshot from that. The green are the for sures, and it's happening. So Astrocon has been planning their big meeting convention here. It starts actually on Thursday and goes Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and obviously into Monday. In getting this yesterday, I just see that there's, the yellows are in progress and the reds are, we heard that they're doing that and they're going to be doing it. The permitting process has not been applied for or anything else right now. The yellow permitting process has been in progress. So that Friday you can see it looks like Pink Floyd concert, some 4x4 or four-wheel drive, if you will, Jeep tours. Downtown is where the Yellowstone Garage. We're having a Eclipse Fest downtown. Uprising is the Christian concert. That's the first day of it. The Eclipse Fest, David Street event. We have a new plaza opening up a couple blocks from our office that is a plaza. And Uprising will continue that night. Astrocon the next day. Insane Inflatables 5K. No idea what that's about. Got to check into that. Riverfest and Duck Derby is a fundraiser. They're moving that up a little bit this year. It's a big brew fest, if you will. The Nitro Circus again, the tours, concerts again, Uprising concert again, the Christian concert, a 5K run, and the Eclipse Fest continues. Sunday, we're looking at all the same, with the addition of a pancake breakfast, live bands, Nick Best, David Street, Washington Park. The Wyoming Symphony Orchestra is looking at, we have a big band shell up there, so they're looking at a large event up there. Casper College having an event, and then Monday, a golf tournament, etc. But obviously looking at, the live stream of the eclipse itself. Our concerns, all hotels basically are sold out. For the most part, except one that hasn't started taking reservations yet, and I do not know why, but it will start. That's the only one that isn't. This number has gone up as of yesterday. I think it's doubled or tripled as far as out of the 264 RV spots that were specially put aside. We will also, we know of bus day trippers coming up from Colorado, just day trips. Our incident command system we're using is a unified command, multi-agency, multi-jurisdictional, with several agencies and disciplines using emergency support function, which is ESF. Command staff and general staff positions are going to be assigned, are not assigned as yet. And we're looking at an overall incident action plan, or IAP objectives that we've got. Then we're, I should say, that is in progress right now, and we're forming that. Basically, we're kind of taking the attitude of it like a large wildland fire. In other words, where there's an event going on, that's the hot spot. That will get the majority of resources, with other resources spread out throughout the county, handling the influx of other possible issues, mainly being traffic, medical, and fires. Logistical, our medical and health folks setting up first aid stations around. Our big concern about that is altitude sickness as well as dehydration. August, the winds tend to blow a little bit. It's very hot and humidity's like 10% or so. Law enforcement, extra personnel. The problem with law and fire, bringing extra personnel in, is where we're going to put them and where we're going to house them, because all our normal means are taken up. So we're looking at, if you will, a sheltering for law and fire at this time. Traffic control will be a large play in this, using lots of use of dynamic signs, maybe some road closures. We do have construction going on, some major construction on some major arteries during that time that we found out about. So that's another big issue right there. And then obviously the viewing areas, ingress, egress, first aid station, porta potties, etc. Our dispatch center is, we have a combined dispatch center that does all law enforcement, medical, and fire dispatching for the entire county. Are they going to need additional call takers and or dispatch personnel, as well as contingencies, which we already have in place in case the center were to go down for some reason? camping areas have expanded. In the rural areas, they've added 10 camping areas. Up at our All Event Center, they've added self-contained recreational vehicle areas that has yet to fill up and has a lot of space left. The housing and feeding I talked about. General aviation out at our airport. We are a diversion airport. We do have commercial flights, 60 passenger planes that come in and out of there with 2 airlines. So the general aviation, they are talking about running out of ramp space already for parking on the ramps. A lot of folks have inquired about, if you will, fly-ins, to do a fly-in, watch the eclipse, and then fly out. And that's anywhere from your typical small Cessna single-engine type of airplane to the larger corporate jets. And the airport is also looking at a temporary closure during the eclipse time, as they don't want to be parking aircraft, etc., while people are paying attention to the eclipse and not paying attention to what they're doing. So they are contemplating that temporary airport closure. One of the issues that comes with that is our light flight helicopter is housed and parked out there. So we'll be getting with that air flight company to reposition that resource during that time, so that even though the airport's closed, they can still get off the ground if we need them. Blockage of roads, driveways, etc. calls, surge and medical calls, and the types of calls I talk about. Severe weather, that is our, if you will, even though it's hot and dry, we can get our monsoonal stuff coming up, and we can get severe thunderstorms, 60, 70 mile an hour winds, along with large hail. And if we have a lot of people out and about, or a lot of people in tents in different areas, contingencies, getting them the warning, as well as plenty of time of warning, and getting them into sheltered areas. We do work closely with our local weather service officer, which is up in Fremont County to the west in Riverton, Wyoming. And we have put in a request to have a weather person on site in our Emergency Operations Center for this event. Also, the effects of space weather on comms, whether it be cellular or we run off an 800 and high band digital system. Overwhelming what we call WyoLink, which is our statewide digital system, and overwhelming it by having so many units on it talking all at the same time, and that's cellular. Wildfires, we are in the height of our wildfire season at that time. That is a concern, and if we have to do quick evacuations with the different viewing areas that will be outside the city limits. Car crashes, terroristic type of threats and incidents, and language barriers. We run into that a little bit, but probably every summer, but probably not as much as we will on this event. So some of our tactics, walking patrols with law enforcement, accident investigation strike teams, 2 or 3 officers, a couple of wreckers to go out, do the wreck, get it investigated, and get the road cleared out. The medical and first aid stations to cut down on the ambulance calls. Fire patrols in the rural areas to jump on small fires before they get large. You got to understand, very rural communities out here, or area, we're looking at just Natrona County is like 5,700 square miles. If we have a fire start in some places, it might be 1.5 hours, 2 hours before you have any units on it at all, if we're lucky. Pre-positioning the ambulances, we have a couple of volunteer or smaller ambulance services that are with fire departments in Evansville, Wyoming, and Midwest Wyoming, as well as Mills. And those are communities within the county. However, the rest of the county also is served mainly by Wyoming Medical Center ambulances, and our game plan to get those pre-positioned out throughout the city and metropolitan area so they can get to scenes a little quicker. Having watering stations, triaging the calls, if you will, and seeing if we can do phone reports, that sort of thing, without sending people here and there, calling what we call a snow day procedure for crashes. Minor crashes, vehicles are still drivable, nobody's hurt, and there's no intoxication involved, exchanging information and filing a report later. Exercises, tabletop exercises with all our contingencies will be a must, and our first one is going to be December 6th, I believe. to talk about, and we're not going to throw all the contingencies at once, but we'll take 2 or 3 of those contingencies or what ifs, exercise that, and then replan, form our plan a little bit more, tighten it up, and then re-exercise with some of the new contingencies or different contingencies. Specialized extra supplies, equipment, whether it be the Eclipse classes or whatever. Some of our emergency support function groups that we will be using and activating. Transportation, communications, the firefighting, the emergency management, mass care, emergency assistance and housing and human services, public health and medical services, public safety and security, which is mainly law enforcement, and external affairs, which is a big portion of warning the public as well as public information, not only where good viewing areas and where there's room in viewing areas, but also if we have some type of emergency situation that we need to get the word out and what information they need to do or have. And that's about it. And I guess we'll take questions later or printed out, or excuse me, typed out, and there's my contact information. And that's it.
Lieutenant Anderson, thank you very much for giving us a good perspective of what will be happening in a large city, even a large city which is about to be doubled in population. And thank you for touching on the transportation components, the operational components, whether it's traffic incident management or the traffic control. And now let's sort of look at what's going to be happening on the rural side in a smaller county at the other end of the state. Rich Oakes will talk about what's going to be happening in Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
Okay, my name is Rich Oakes. I'm the Emergency Management Coordinator for Teton County, Wyoming, and the town of Jackson, and we'll see if we can get this to work. Is it showing the right screen? Are you seeing the presentation right now, Lori?
I see a blue screen with 4 squares like a window. I'm not sure what I'm looking at. Okay.
Hold on.
That
Move
looks right.
over here. That looks about right. Well, need to switch screens here. Hold on.
I think so.
Monitor 3. There we go. How does that look?
Perfect. Just enlarge it and we're set.
So you're not seeing.
I think we're okay now. It's just a widescreen presentation, so. Oh, you were good, Rich.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So we'll go into some of the things. A lot of it is the same as what Stu went over, but we'll kind of see a smaller community here. Just to give some perspective, this is a similar map of the state. You can see highlighted in pink there. That's Teton County with Jackson as a star there. We're on the far west side of Wyoming, which means that we also are on a state line. So in addition to having to work with mutual aid partners within our county, we also have to work interstate as well on a lot of issues. Quick overview of Teton County. The regional nickname is Jackson Hole. A lot of people have heard of Jackson Hole before. We're known for skiing. We're known for the national parks. We only have one incorporated city in the county, which is the town of Jackson. An interesting thing, 97% of our county is federal land. So we work very closely with several federal partners on a regular basis, such as Grand Teton National Park, Bridger Teton National Forest, and the National Elk Refuge. Population is about 22,000. However, any day in the summer, we can easily triple that number with pass-through traffic. The summer is our busy season. So another thing, our economy kind of comes into play, especially when we're looking at the Eclipse. We're the only county in Wyoming without any commercial resource extraction. So our economy is almost completely dependent upon sales tax revenue from tourism. And I think we might need to mute somebody's phone that's on there, probably one of the presenters right now. Also, we are a relatively affluent community. We top the list for richest county in the United States, but we're also seen as one of the most inequitable counties as far as the difference between the 1% and the other folks. So there's a big gap within our community that we kind of have to work with as well. Transportation-wise, we're pretty isolated. We're a valley that runs north-south with two major mountain ranges to the east and to the west. So there's really 5 ways in and out of the county by road that are highlighted on the map. 2 of them are very prone to landslide and avalanches. 2 are over mountain passes, and then the last one heads north into Yellowstone National Park. Transportation-wise, we also have a public transportation system with over 900,000 riders annually. And as Stu mentioned, over in Natrona County, they're a diversion airport. They're a larger airport. However, Teton County Jackson Hole Airport is the busiest commercial airport in the state of Wyoming. So we get over 500,000 arrivals, departures annually. And there is no rail access in our city as far as transportation is concerned. Our emergency management department's small. We have 3 folks. I'm the coordinator. I have a program assistant, and I have a communications coordinator. And our main responsibility is to maintain the Emergency Operations Center, update plans. We do get quite a few special events, but really mainly we're dealing with wildfires, floods, search and rescue, landslide, avalanches are the big issues that we deal with here. Preparing for the eclipse. We really started looking at this back in July 2015, kind of going back to the comment by Shauna about the local astronomers. We had a local astronomy folks approach us and ask us if we were planning for this eclipse thing back in July 2015. Had no idea what they were talking about. And then we started doing our research, and we realized, like Stu mentioned, how serious this is going to be. And it's likely going to be the largest special event our county will ever see. And it's very interesting as we go through these preparations and the plans, watching the evolution of folks that you introduce the concept to. At first, you know, it's denial. They're like, oh, it's not going to be that big. Then they start doing research. They start hearing what everybody's saying. They're like, oh, maybe this will be a big deal. And then they're like, no, this is going to be huge. We need to start planning for it. Right now, my main concern, and we'll show you some of our planning framework, my main job right now seems to be occupied with raising awareness and making sure that I get people to that stage where they're like, oh yeah, this is going to be a big deal, so that they start to take action now. My big concern is that we're gonna be 2 months out, and that's finally when the major partners that we need to be planning for this are gonna finally be like, oh wait, we should have started 2 years ago. So really a big part of my job is getting the word out. So we used a couple special events. We had the 60th anniversary of Jackson Hole Mountain Resort, which is the major ski area here. They had a major concert, which was at that point in time the largest single special event in our county's history, which I believe will be overtaken by the eclipse. We used that as kind of a full-scale exercise to practice things. We had to alternate transportation routes. We ran everything under an incident command structure with a private entity, which was unique, which is something we hadn't done before. It worked out really well, and it looks like we're going to be having another one of those concerts this year, so it's another opportunity for us to practice. For those that are familiar with the Homeland Security processes, we use the eclipse as our scenario for our THIRA, which is a Threat and Hazard Identification Risk Assessment. In Wyoming, each of the counties are required to conduct one of these, and agencies that receive Homeland Security grants have to participate in them. So we got really good participation, and it was a great opportunity for our stakeholders to identify some of the problems that they could see coming up with a large special event like the eclipse. And that's really formed the basis for a lot of our planning moving forward. We put together a planning framework that we presented to our town and county administrators. and we're starting to do monthly meetings with our emergency support function coordinators. Stu kind of alluded to that over there. This is a look at our planning team. So we essentially have a core planning team. We have folks that are in charge of our emergency support functions. So we follow the model of the National Response Framework, which many of you may be familiar with if you've ever taken the FEMA IS 800 course. That's what it's based on. So we're activating all 15 of our emergency support functions for this event. And you can see the different partners. And then we have some primary and support agencies that help out those partners. But the core planning team is emergency management, our Jackson Hole Fire EMS. So we have a single unified fire district in Teton County. Teton County Sheriff's Office, the Jackson Police Department, Grand Teton National Park, Bridger Teton National Forest, and the National Elk Refuge. So we're trying to include the major land management partners in the county in our core planning team. So right now, a lot of the same things as Stu mentioned. Hotel rooms are booked out. They've been booked for about 2 years, is what we know. Middle of August is peak tourism season for Teton County, so this is the worst timing possible for an event like the Eclipse. If this was happening in November or March, our community would be all over it because those are our shoulder seasons. Typically, summer is our busiest season. Winter's pretty busy, but not as many folks. Middle of August, we're already packed. We're already at capacity, so this is not something that's going to help us in any way because we're already capped out. We already know that all the porta-johns are spoken for in our county, which our public health came up with and they found out. So that's going to be an issue. We're already seeing that logistical issue. And we do know private organizations are putting on special events such as golf courses, astronomy clubs, and the ski resorts. The center line practically passes through 2 major ski resorts in our area. And they're planning on putting upwards of 1,000 people on top of Rendezvous Mountain, which could cause logistical issues if people have medical issues or things like that up there. So it's going to be a big issue. The things that concern us, what we don't know, we don't know how many people are coming. We don't know when they're going to show up, and we don't know how long they're going to stay. We do know from anecdotal evidence from several Eclipse experts that we should plan for about a week surrounding the eclipse. So 3 days before, day of the eclipse, 3 days after. However, since we have Grand Teton National Park and Yellowstone National Park right in our backyard, this is going to be an issue. We think a lot of people are going to stick around longer or come earlier to combine the eclipse event with seeing some of the national parks in our area of the state. So we're going to be ready for a longer duration, which is going to be a huge strain on our resources. And like Stu mentioned, we don't know what the weather or the wildfire season is going to be like. So a bad wildfire season in Natrona County over on the east side of the state could push all those people to us or vice versa. So we need to be ready for that surge. We need to further coordinate with neighboring jurisdictions moving forward. We're going to continue to conduct monthly planning meetings led by emergency management. We're planning exercises, but they're not necessarily focused on the eclipse. So we're going to be practicing some of the some of the skills that we need for the eclipse, but we don't necessarily have eclipse-focused exercises right now. And really the big thing we're working on now is getting a good estimate of the number of folks that are going to show up and making sure that the different primary agencies, such as the Park Service, the Forest Service, the Elk Refuge, the town, the county, making sure that we have unified messaging. We're really working hard on putting together a joint information system so there's a unified voice when we're talking about special events or if we're talking about special restrictions or rules that might be put into place during the eclipse. With that being said, I'm all done, and I'll hand it back over to Lori.
Thank you very much, Rich. We realize that with this wealth of information, we are going to go a little over, and if you can stay on, great, because we think it's just a good basis of information for you to know, because as you see, it's going across states. As Rich said, he is not only working with the folks in Idaho, but Bill Wyoming, but also in his neighboring state in Idaho. And we'll hear from Daryl Bivens, who will talk about from state DOT perspective of what's happening within Tennessee, another one of those states under that path of totality, and what he's working with his states and his partner states. So please stay on to listen and to ask questions. Daryl.
Okay, can you see my screen there?
We can,
yeah. We're good.
Okay. You're looking at the presentation and not my other screen, though, right?
No, we're looking at your other screen.
Okay. Let me see if I can move it over to that other screen.
That's it. Yep.
How's that?
Perfect.
Is it
That's
full
it.
size, or is it?
No, just make it, I think just hit the, from beginning on the left-hand side, and you should, yeah. Yep.
Oh, no, it's, you have it to show on monitor 2, Daryl, so you have to...
Yeah, how do I switch that? This is...
You can stop the presentation.
Okay.
And then you see show on right there under resolution. Go back to the PowerPoint.
I'm there.
And then under resolution, you should see show on, and then it says monitor. And you should be able to choose monitor 1.
How's that,
there
folks?
You go. Yeah.
Okay.
That is perfect.
Well, everybody's talking about this being an event that hasn't been seen in over 100 years. For our part of the country, it's been 500 years and 539 years. It's been 1478 was the last time that the moon cast its shadow upon the state of Tennessee. There's the path that it takes across there. It basically follows the I-24 corridor down from Clarksville to Nashville, and then the I-40 across from Nashville to Cookeville, Crossville, Harriman, and Knoxville, that area. Along that I-40 corridor, we've got some issues that we anticipate. One is the hotels are already selling out. Cookeville, there in Putnam County, and then in Wilson County there just to the right of Nashville is a Lebanon. They've already sold out, and then there's one hotel in Smith County by the interstate, and that is where the center line crosses the interstate right there in Smith County at the little town of Gordonsville. And it's going to be more than they can handle, and they're aware of it, and they're really gearing up their planning efforts to be able to handle it. Some of the potential issues that we see in the state is certainly the influx of umbrophiles. It's what they call the solar tourists, and being along the I-40 or I-24 and I-40 corridor, due to the accessibility of the area, we expect a whole lot of people, to say the least. We expect probably the population of the state to close to double over that weekend. One thing that we have seen in the past, since we're going to be having about 3 hours of darkness or partial darkness, there's going to be a little bit of decrease in solar power production. Of course, the state doesn't rely so much on solar power, but in those areas that do use solar power, there's going to be a little reduction there. But then the flip side of that is there's also going to be some increased electricity consumption as the lights will be coming on. So we'll be looking at that as well. Like Wyoming, we know that there are going to be portable toilet shortages. And then everywhere that people can congregate, we know that they will, in open places where they have a good view of the sky. So those are the things that we're looking at the state level. Traffic-wise and transportation-wise, we're looking at a huge increase in traffic, exponential, to say the least, especially on those two interstates, I-24 and I-40, and to a lesser extent on I-75. The path just crosses I-75 75 rather than following it like it does 24 and 40. Also, we're hearing that the general aviation airports in the path are also starting to get booked up for that time. Parking spaces, ramp space, and stuff like that, I think is going to be at a premium come the 21st. And also, at least 17 of our state parks are having viewing events. Here are some of our potential hot spots, and these simply because of ease and accessibility. Austin Peay State University would add to that Tennessee Technological University in Cookeville. They're all having major viewing events and such as that. There's the a museum in Nashville, the Adventure Science Museum, I think has something planned, even though the period of totality is only about a minute or so. Clingman's Dome is the highest point in the state of Tennessee in the Great Smoky Mountains, and I understand that there's an event planned for up there to see the eclipse from there. From what I understand, though, there's only like 39 seconds of totality at Clingman's Dome. However, that's not going to stop the crowds from getting up there. A lot of our localities are already planning exercises. The first one that I know of is going to be in mid-November here in a couple of weeks in Sumner County, the city of Gallatin. They have been told that the eclipse is going to be its greatest and longest period right there in their county. I don't know where they got that, but they're under the belief that the eclipse is going to last longer in Gallatin than anywhere else in the country. So they've got a huge event planned for that, and I don't think they've taken into account all the traffic problems that's going to ensue, but those will come out in the tabletop, I'm relatively confident. The state has put together a task force for the eclipse. They haven't met yet, but it includes people from the Department of Transportation, Department of Public Health, Environment and Conservation, because they own the state parks. There'll be the Emergency Management Agency, TEMA, the State Emergency Management Agency, and a few other agencies, Highway Patrol, the National Guard, and there will be a number of facilitated discussions, and there will be multiple tabletops, and they will get involved at the local level as well, more and more so as we lead up to the actual event. Now, the state has an incident action plan for planned special events that we use for the second weekend in June every year. All along I-24, there are music festivals that weekend. There's the Country Music Festival in Nashville. There's the Riverbend Festival in Chattanooga. And there's the Bonnaroo Festival in Manchester. If you're not familiar with Bonnaroo, let's just suffice it to say that it makes Woodstock look like a garage band concert. This thing is huge. They have ticket sales of 150,000 plus, and in addition to that, there's probably that many more outside that's just hanging around and doing whatever. But we have an incident action plan that involves a number of agencies. We set up along the entire I-24 corridor because we have huge traffic all along that corridor from state line to state line. And we feel like that by modifying this plan just slightly, we can cut the 24 corridor down to from the Kentucky state line to Nashville, and then run the I-40 corridor east to the I-75 split. And I-75, like I said, the line just crosses I-75, so we probably won't be too concerned about that. But that's what we have planned in Tennessee. Our efforts are just now getting off the ground, and we'll be wrapping up rather sharply between now and then. And the path across the state is largely over rural areas, some places along the center line with large open spaces will probably experience a larger influx of the eclipse watchers. And we know from experience and what we've learned from other countries that to the die-hard umbraphile, that extra tenth of a second is everything. And so the areas where the center line of the path of totality crosses an interstate or comes very near to an interstate, we expect very large crowds. That's all I have. Do I have any questions?
Thanks, Daryl. The only thing I was going to ask you is just to chat a little bit about the partnerships you have with your neighboring states with regard to earthquakes and how you are going to try to work through your TMCs to share what's happening a little further west as the solar eclipse works its way across the country.
Yes, that's a very good question. Tennessee is part of the Central U.S. Earthquake Consortium, commonly known as CUSEC, and three of our sister states in that organization, Kentucky, Illinois, and Missouri, will be experiencing the eclipse in a very big way. Missouri has a very long path of totality going across it. The longest duration of totality is just south of Carbondale, Illinois, and the point of greatest eclipse is in Cerulean, Kentucky, which is just northwest of Hopkinsville. We have very good working relationships between the states in that consortium, and as we start looking at this and planning about it, we're getting ideas from each other about what to do and how to handle things. We talk to each other very regularly, and not just about earthquake stuff, but anything else that happens. We route traffic around problem areas on a regular basis in a regional way. So our partners in Illinois, Kentucky, and Missouri will be very much involved with what we do in Tennessee for this event, and we will be involved with what they do as well.
Thanks. As we look for questions from you, this is Lori, and I'm just going to give a couple of, let you know of that Federal Highway, as I said, I'm the program manager for Planned Special Events. We do have publications and products. This is all going to be available at the webinar URL, so I won't spend any time, but I just want you to, as it disappears, just some of the publications we have and the website. So these are what we have that's available for you to use. We've got checklists, tabletop exercises, making use of incident command for planned special events, for transportation professionals. All this is available. We did a fact sheet on the solar eclipse that's there for you to share. Again, as you get ready for this, what we heard, let me go through this again. So these are the publications and the web page that you can get. It's all on the URL, and checklists and other things. So what we heard from coast to coast, this will affect, if your day's drive, 200 million people. When she was talking with us last week, said 100 million people live within about a 4 hours drive. So, and any way you cut it, there will be a lot of interest in this. So we thought it would be helpful to get you as familiar with this as we are, and ask us questions either now or as you're getting things underway, as you start planning. But there's, as Shauna said, look to your astronomy clubs, and because it does cross state borders, work with, the suggestion is to work with your neighboring states. And if there are any questions, please let us know. We know it's just after 2:30, and we don't want to keep you. You all have schedules, but we look forward to any of your questions. That said,
Lori,
yes.
Oh, there were a few questions, and so I was hoping you can help just kind of facilitate who would be a good person to answer it.
Can I find? Okay, I will go through them. So the questions are, the presentations will be available, and so once they send out the URL will be sent out to all the registrants after this has been recorded. Presentations will be uploaded to the National Operations Center of Excellence Knowledge Center. And as you get that link, please share it with your stakeholders and others involved. I think this is one of these events, as they tell us, but it has happened more frequently than when the Cubs last won the World Series. So I think there is some balance here, but even so, very rare. But do share this with the wide range of stakeholders that you probably need to engage in this. So astronomy clubs, museums. Some other questions were, let's see if there are any other questions. I don't see.
You want me to?
If you read them, I can't find the chat box. Yeah, you read them.
Okay, yeah. They were in the questions portion, but the first one came from Lisa Appleby, and she was just asking, where can she or anyone get the glasses to see the solar eclipse?
You know, I have stayed away from that. Lika might know, but I would say go to any ophthalmologist or optometrist, and they would be the right people. I wouldn't even hazard a guess to send people what glasses, and maybe even your museums. But Lika or Shauna, if you can answer that.
Yes, so if you Google eclipse glasses, there are a number of companies that make them, and you can get them in larger quantities for an event, or you can get them in smaller quantities for your own personal use. Another thing to know is that a welding glass, is safe for solar viewing if it is the darkest shade. So it's the number 14 or 16 welding mask or welding goggles. That is a safe way to view the sun, and that's something you can just pick up at the hardware store. So there's a couple different options there.
Excellent, thank you.
Great. The next question we have is, will the eclipse have an impact on circadian rhythms that will result in noticeable effects on people's feelings? For example, will it make people feel tired or similar to jet lag?
I'll let Lika and Shauna answer that. I'm told that animals will become nocturnal, but I'll leave that to Shauna and Lika to answer.
Yes, I think definitely such activities have been noted in animals, and I think this will be an opportunity to study the animal behavior. But as far as human beings are concerned, again, I think that's why I was mentioning this will be an opportunity to gather information. So eclipse happens over a few hours, while the totality lasts only for a very short time, few minutes. The actual process of reduction in daylight happens over a few hours. And so the physiological conditions, behavior, attitude on human beings have only been marginally looked at over a shorter period of time, because eclipses don't go over such broad swath of landmass to collect data. So this will be something I'm hoping, psychologists and others will be collecting data on.
Yes, and hopefully the sight of this beautiful, incredible thing will be somewhat invigorating and perhaps counteract whatever effects the relative darkness has. But you're right, it'll be interesting to study this when it happens.
Very good point. We had another question related to in Wyoming and possibly also in Tennessee and the other states. Were your visitor estimates based solely on your permit process, or were there other sources of visitor numbers that you were using?
Rich or Stu or Daryl, can you answer that?
This is Rich from Teton County. That's one of the big shortfalls in our planning right now, is that we do not have an accurate number. And I'll let Stu speak to the convention that he's having in Casper. I think they have a better handle on some of that stuff. Plus, they have a special events coordinator who's kind of keeping track of stuff. But for us, the only thing we have is we know that our capacity for hotel beds and campgrounds, front country campgrounds, not backcountry dispersed camping, is about 26,000. So our county population year-round is about 22,000. We know we can accommodate 26,000. So as a planning number, we're just doubling that. We're saying expect 40,000 people per day for the 7 days surrounding the eclipse, to purposefully stress us and force us to look at contingencies, things like that. But we honestly have no idea how many people are showing up.
This is go ahead.
I'm sorry, this is Stu in Natrona County. Where we got our numbers was from the AstroCon folks when they first approached us and said they were having their meetings here, and that's what they said they could expect, as well as the last eclipse in, was it Australia or New Zealand? Cairns? And how they planned for 30,000 and they had 60,000 show up. So that's just from some past history and what they are expecting. So I guess it's their best guess. So that's what we're going for at least that, if not more.
And that's one of the problems we're having in Tennessee too. We don't have any way of getting a handle of how many are coming, but we do know that that the state lies within a day's drive of 70% of the United States population, and so we can expect a very large number. We don't know how large that number is going to be, but we would expect it to be at least on the magnitude of the music festival weekend, which handles upwards of 2 million people, and we could probably have that many or more with the other one, and that's what we're going with.
There was actually another question for Tennessee, Daryl. The question was, do you have your messages planned out and ready for your DMSs, or will they be, will you have separate messages for this?
We use a for the music festival weekend. We use a simple message. It says event parking next right or something to that effect. We don't advertise for anything, but we do we will direct traffic off of the interstate and into areas where we can alleviate some of the congestion. Does that answer your question?
Probably. I guess in your planning, has there been any discussion about specific DMS messages, or is it just your policy not to kind of be specific about a particular event?
Yeah, we don't. We try to stay away from naming specific events on our message boards. We will not name a specific event, but we support a number of events. But we'll say something like event next 3 exits, event parking next right, event parking or event traffic use outside lane or right lane, right, or something like that. But yeah, it's very generic.
Yeah. There was a comment more than anything else related to the edge effects or so, but it's many people focus on the duration of totality. However, people should know that what is called edge effects phenomena occur close to the edge of the path of totality. So while it is shorter in duration at the edge, these effects include the diamond ring and Bailey speeds, which happen instantaneously at the center line. So just please be aware that there will be lots of interest at the edges and not just the center line. That's a good piece of information.
That's good to know.
Yeah. Let's see. This is another question for those involved in the planning. Is there a plan to get information to national media about how to drive safely during the actual time of the eclipse, or is this going to be handled within the states or the states by doing it themselves?
That's a really good question. I guess we can work with NASA. I don't know what NASA and the Smithsonian are planning to do with regards to getting the word out, but probably a combined message through NASA's website or something like maybe on NASA's webpage because that's where people will go. If that makes sense to you, Lika, we can help you with that. And then with you, through the National Operations Center, if that makes sense to you, Patrick, is get it through there, because I think that's something that can then get, and through the AASHTO Communications Committee,
Right.
and get it out to the state DOTs. I would think that would be the best way to do it. I'm open to any other suggestions.
I think, yeah, that sounds like a good thing to do. If we can generate the material, then there is the NASA website, which we heavily use. There is American Astronomical Society's web page. So if there is core material, we can link it and publicize it.
Yeah, the fact sheet I wrote was based on what the state DOTs need to know. But so this is twisting that about 180 degrees of what does the driver need to know. And I'd have to, I'd need some help on this and how to drive safely in something like this. So I will work with NASA and Shauna. Yeah, I'm open. And Daryl, any thoughts you have? I'm open to that. Or if anyone has any thoughts on what should be the type of information to include, send me a note.
Yeah, in fact, maybe there should be few of us can sort of participate in a telecon to generate the material. I mean, I don't think it's going to be a little bit Eclipse specific, but oftentimes the information will be something that we prepare people for another disaster kind of event.
Well, we talk to them all the time about disasters, but this one does have some unique features. Just this whole bit about the solar eclipse, the edge part, is that something that people need to know about? So I think we can actually focus on the solar eclipse that has unique features that may, and because their mood will be a little bit different for a planned event than they are for disasters. So a little different psychology. But yeah, I must admit I don't know much about this, so I'm happy to take input from anyone. Yeah.
I think for driving, you have to be aware of the light conditions, basically.
Okay.
Are your sensors going to come on? Because in the region of totality, it's going to be pretty dark for just a few minutes. And those are the kind of things we have to keep in mind.
Okay.
Yeah, timing for streetlights and that. But there's the darkness, which is sort of just like nighttime or twilight. But then there's the distraction issues. So those both will need to be considered.
And this is where it becomes difficult. Someone did send me some stuff from Australia and other places where they had eclipses, but it wasn't very detailed about the actual driving, what you need to know during an eclipse. So I don't even know that there is much out there. And as Lika was saying, the eclipse itself is a time that a lot of scientific observations will be underway. So I'm open to suggestions, because I'm going to be guessing on this one. So.
Yeah. Rich Oaks, Teton County. I would just mention, kind of bigger picture-wise, one of the big things that came up during our planning sessions with all of our emergency support functions is the need for preventative communications, which I think this falls into, but not just focusing on the visitors to an area, but focusing on the locals, letting them know what to expect, having them prepare, put together a 72-hour kit. We know that one of the big things that came out was messaging about wildfire safety, because in our area of the country, that's prime wildfire season, and we're going to have a lot of people camping because the hotels are not full, are all full. We're really concerned about wildfires breaking out and then us having an incident within this special event. The other thing is obviously safety for viewing, issues with being careful in the backcountry. We're going to have a lot of people visiting. We have a volunteer search and rescue team that's already busy that time of year, so we're going to get out and do backcountry safety messaging. So things that aren't even directly related to the eclipse, like driving, we're going to be putting out a lot of public safety messaging, because we know we're going to have a lot of people who aren't familiar with our community that are going to be sticking around for a while. and that came up from all of our emergency support functions, is the need to get that word out ahead of time to folks, to both locals and the people that are visiting.
And as Rich was saying that, I was reminded that we had been in contact with someone from the Department of Homeland Security, and they, through their HISN network, are going to reach out to all the state advisors to get their side of the community familiar with what they need to know. So what we learned from them was that they're standing up a community of interest for planning and sharing for the eclipse, and it will be available to emergency management, law enforcement officials, and others through the path of the eclipse. And for more information, to contact Tommy Murray at associates.hq.dhs.gov. So there's a little bit of information there. He's also reaching out to his fellow mission advocates who are going to reach out to their emergency management contacts along the path. So if you're with a DOT, you may want to work with your emergency managers and see and help us out collectively to help develop that kind of document. But as Rich was talking about developing these additional messages, maybe that can all be shared through the HISN network, so that there's one repository for all this preliminary or pre-event information to be shared.
And, you know, there's such great information. I wanted to make sure we just had one or two more points that we can do, we can bring in, and then we'll go ahead and close this webinar. Hot Springs County in Wyoming, who's been very active, thank you for that, is also including mental health in their planning meeting to see if there's any local residents that might need special considerations. And also they're looking to increase their need and supply for rattlesnake antivenom, along with mosquito spraying to prevent kind of the West Nile virus or any other diseases or viruses that might come from mosquitoes. One question that I don't think we have the answer, because I think we are kind of way over time, but people can definitely come back to the recording to get the rest of this, is consideration for signing the location of the center line of the path. You know, the maps online are great, but then when people start driving out there, it might be they might just be driving around in circles and not really knowing where to go. So you know, that's something to be considered. And then just some more DMS questions. It's worth looking at other possible safety messages that relate to, you know, don't take photos while driving and distraction-related issues. So with that, I am going to thank all of our presenters and all of our attendees who have stayed with us all the way to the end. The webinar recording, along with the presentations and future resource information, will be available probably within a week or less from the center. So we'll email that out and put it up in our newsletter for everyone to share. But I want to thank all the presenters once again, and hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you all.
Thank you, Pat. Bye-bye.